divisions of our courts, whether it's state or federal, could Thorburn reasonably take his case to?
Yeah, so most claims in Australia by employees against employers are brought in the Fair Work Tribunal. That's where Israel Folau's case was heard. It's where most litigation in Australia around employment is heard, and this case probably would be brought there too. It is possible for him to bring a case in the Supreme Court of Victoria because it was a Victorian, all of the parties are in Victoria, and the Victorian court has the right to hear all major cases in Victoria. The Supreme Court has very strong rights. If you're bringing a more breach of contract type claim, it would probably be in the Supreme Court, whereas a purely employment discrimination type claim would be in the Fair Work Commission.
If there are strict laws in Victoria about discriminating on the basis of religious affiliation, and the same applies in a different way at the federal level, what legal advice would Essendon Bombers possibly have got from their in-house lawyers about being permitted to do such a thing?
Yeah, so there's the Fair Work Act, which is a federal piece of legislation, and then there's the Equal Opportunity Act in Victoria, and both say religious discrimination's a major problem. I suspect they haven't got a lot of legal advice, or they haven't closely followed the legal advice. The way the statements that they've made focus on religion, and if I was advising them, I'd say don't focus on religion. Religion's irrelevant here. It's a red herring. If you're the Essendon Football Club, you should be focused on values and say we're a progressive football club. We have these values. We expect our CEO to support and uphold those values. There's nothing wrong with an organisation expecting its senior people to support and uphold their own values, and they could have done that, and they could have sensitively done that, and done a deal with Mr. Thorburn in relation to his exit that wasn't so embarrassing for everybody.
Very true. So, with someone at an upper echelon of CEOs like Andrew Thorburn was and probably still is, doesn't this damage his reputation? And if he was to be successful with a discrimination case in one of these courts you've mentioned, what could the winning payout look like, Alex?
Yes, well, it certainly does damage his reputation. It's embarrassing. It certainly damages Essendon's reputation, although I'm not sure there's much they can do about that. His salary package, as I understand it, at Essendon was $850,000 a year, and the main compensation that he would achieve in court would be damages in relation to lost earnings. So I imagine his compensation, if he was to bring a case, would be somewhere around $850,000 or possibly more. Although in Mr. Thorburns' case, I think he's likely to get another job very quickly, so I think he's actually not likely to suffer all of that much. If he bought a defamation case, totally different story, and I don't think there's much of a basis for a defamation case, but I think if he bought something in the Fair Work Tribunal, you're looking at a claim of $850,000, possibly $1 million or more.
Would you like to represent him?
Well, I've actually, as it happens, I've sued National Australia Bank a number of times successfully while Mr. Thorburn was at the helm. So I'm not sure that I'd be on his list of Christmas card list, or that he'd wanted me to represent him. I also live in Essendon, and my father's an Essendon supporter, and I'm an Essendon supporter. So I think if I was to sue the Essendon Football Club, I'd probably have eggs thrown at me when I was down at the shops. So I think it's a no from me.
Keep to the advice, at least to the public anyway. Alex Martin, thank you very much for that insight.